Hello and good morning. Today we're waving our Profoto flag, if you will. I got to talk to Eric though. Extra large shirts they're not gonna. I appreciate it, but I need to get something a little smaller so I can wear it on air. But that is what we're talking about
Wait, there's
today.
shirts?
The
I didn't have
all
a shirt.
new Profoto A. And that voice that you hear is my friend Tony Corbell. How are you doing today, sir?
I am terrific. It's a beautiful day in the neighborhood here in beautiful downtown Muskogee, Oklahoma, in my little studio. And yeah, I'm glad to be with you for sure.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for joining. We've been kind of planning
Yeah.
this for the last couple weeks, and as it's gotten closer, just more. I'm really excited because we've had customers come in the store and they've been talking about how they feel like they have to get these big, expensive, extravagant studio strobes in order to create beautiful light. And what Profoto has done here with the A10 line, or the A1 and now the A10, is they basically created this beautiful light source, and it's small. It produces pretty big results, and judging by the title of your presentation here, that's what we're going to be talking about today, is the A10 and really just some of the stuff you've been able to create with it.
It's the lights are small. They have obviously less power than the studio lights. But when you really break it down, the output for these little guys is really pretty terrific and really usable. And the greatest thing that's happened to our industry that makes these lights even more powerful is the camera manufacturers. They've given us ISOs that we can do something with now. We're not stuck with 200 ISO any longer. I regularly shoot at 800 and 1600 with flash on location. 3200. There's no reason not to. And so that just makes these small lights so much more powerful. So we're going to dig into that a lot here in just a minute and talk about some of that. And we'll talk some of the technical spec at all, and I'll show you a ton of pictures recently taken with the small A10s.
Awesome. Well, I wanted to say hello to a few people that are joining us. Hello, Mr. Mike Vrobel from Copley, Ohio. He is definitely a Profoto user. Jim Summers says, guess what day it is? Hump day. Lewis, Lewis Leal. Hello, buddy. Love the roller coaster, our intro. And there's a couple others that are joining us, and I wanted to say hello to them. So thank you so much for taking the time to jump into this live stream and learn a little bit about using small lights for big results. So Tony, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to you, and I'll let you take off.
Well, good. It's funny how this comes about. I mean, I have when the first A1 hit, I remember getting my first and thinking, I don't know about this. I'm not sure that this is gonna. It's a pretty small light, and I'd been really using a speed light for small jobs, but I wasn't happy with the speed light. I wasn't happy with the high speed sync capabilities, and I wasn't happy with the light quality I was getting at all. And then I got this A1. I thought, okay, well, I'll try it. And I was pretty amazed what happened. And in fact, I photographed a friend of mine got married and kind of eloped and hid away. But then they came back here and had a big blowout party. And he's a musician and well-known musician in the area. And so they had this big party. Well, I went and photographed the party for him. And I put 4 A1s in the corner of this big room. The band was set up and the dance floor and all that. And I just put my Air TTL remote on my camera and walked around shooting all day at this event. And those A1s stayed with me all day, and I got great results. No matter where I stood in the room, I was getting good exposures. And that sort of made a believer out of me. Then I started really testing them. And I've just come to, I won't go to work without them. I've got a 6-pack of the A1, A1Xs. Well, 3 A1s, 2 or 3 A1Xs. And now I've just got the first of my A10s, and I'll be getting more A10s now that I know what they can do, and the fact that they're getting us ready for the future with the Bluetooth technology. So I'm a fan. So I don't know if I'm full screen. I can't see that monitor right now, but you can go ahead and take my slideshow there full screen if you can see that. TJ,
Yep.
that would be
It
good.
is all set. I'm going to make it full screen right now.
Okay, good. Okay, are we on there?
You are all set.
Okay. So yeah, so this is the I didn't know what to title this, so I called it the new big power of the small A10 lights. Thanks to Profoto, I mean, they've been so supportive of some of the things that I've been doing. I've always felt strongly towards a camera or lighting or any of the accessory companies that we all do business with. I always feel a kinship to those that will support education, and Profoto's done that better than most. And so for that reason, they've got me for life as a customer. Where there's so many, there's other products on the market, but they're not making me a better photographer. Profoto is. Pardon me. So yeah, so we have to talk a little bit about when you're dealing with a light like this. You have to talk about light quality, and you also have to talk about the light quantity. This is the front view, the front elevation, if you will, of the new A10, and they've made some significant improvements in the functionality, just in the head itself, and the way the head works. The quality of this thing is really great. So I'm a pretty big fan of what they've done here. But when you talk about light quality, when you put the small domed head on top of any of the A1, A1X, or the A10, the little frosted click dome, this thing then sends light 360 degrees, and it softens an area, and it makes it a usable area light without making it too harsh. And then you talk about light quantity, and I use regularly a 500 watt second studio strobe. I use the B10 pluses. I use the B10s, which is a 250 watt seconds. But this guy with 76 watt seconds, the A1, the A10 is only 1, 2, 3 plus stops down from full power on the 500. You know, if you look at 10 power being 500 watt seconds, 9 power is 250 watt seconds, 8 power is 125, and 7 power output is 64. Well, so like 7.5 setting on my big strobe is the same output I'm getting out of the A10. So when you put it in those terms, it kind of makes sense to use something small and portable. So anyway, we'll dig in a bit. And if you've got questions along the way, I'm assuming somebody's going to stop me and say, "Hey, stop, answer this one." So feel free to, TJ, if you're monitoring the chat room, feel free to jump right in and stop me at any time and say, "Hey, we got a question here." But I'm a big fan, and obviously we'll dig in some of the reasons why. In terms of light quality, we always have to talk about, and I always teach the idea of the cell size is always relative to its distance. Now, what I mean by that, a lot of people that are here have heard me speak before, and I kind of beat this dead horse. I've beat this dead horse for 20 years about size relative to distance. But the smaller the source of light, the harder edge the shadows become, and the smaller and brighter the highlights become. So what that means is anytime I can increase the size of my light source, I can soften the edge of my shadows and minimize or diminish the brightness of the highlight as it spreads over a larger area and as the highlight gets bigger relative to the distance and the light shaping tool. So the importance of light shaping tools comes forth right away. And you can see that you've got to be able to change the size of your source in order to effectively change the qualities of your light and the shadows and the highlights. So we got to have all this stuff. All these tools matter to us, and they all sort of have a right to exist. And then in terms of light quantity, what I just said, you know, you can power this light in such a way that it's not more than about 3 stops less power than my biggest studio strobes that I use every day. So, and at what point is enough enough? The technology of the ISOs in the world of camera manufacturing has changed everything. And then the importance of measuring that quantity. How are you going to measure that output? One of the things that Profoto has really excelled at in the last few years is is the output of the TTL and the way the TTL works with their Air remote. Man, and I'll go through that with you in just a minute and show you some samples. But it's made it so simple for me to gauge my exposures these days that I don't miss exposures. I never miss exposures, and so it's pretty. For me, it's pretty important to have that kind of technology. The quantity of light out of this light, it's a 76 watt seconds is what it's rated at. 9 stop range. You've got TTL, manual, and high speed sync, and it actually works, which is the biggie. So many people have trouble with high speed sync not functioning properly. And then on the full power charge, the new battery that came out with the A10X bumped us up to be able to have 450 full power flashes. I've never had an A1X or the A10 go dead on me. Now, I'm sure they're going to, obviously, but I haven't used them so much at full power that I've run out of power. And it's up to 20 channels now. So instead of the first version of the A1, once the A1X came out, they bumped us up to 20 channels. And it's really, really helpful when you're like me, where I'm teaching in a situation where I might be teaching photo classes. There might be 10 other guys teaching. Well, I just tell all my students to bump up to such and such channel that's so far away from what anything else that anybody else can have. So works pretty well. Basic lighting needs. We all have these basic lighting needs. We need something that's easy to use. We need something that's durable, that's not going to break. The quality of the construction has to be there. We've got to have something that's portable, lightweight, easy to use, easy to carry. We've got to have accessories, and the functionality has to be easy. These things have really excelled in all of these areas. So for that reason, again, I am fully dialed in. This is a recent picture. My wife does a ton of high school seniors in our area. Our studio, as I mentioned earlier, is in Muskogee, Oklahoma. And I do mostly commercial, editorial, advertising. And she does family portraits, high school seniors. And so we have a pretty good mixture here of being able to cover just about all the needs of anybody in the area for our client work. She used to be what we know as the natural light photographer, and she kind of got away from that a while and started using flash outdoors. Now she won't work without flash, and there's a lot of reasons for that, and we'll dig into that a bit here in just a little bit. But again, this is one with an A1X just off camera to the left. I haven't let her shoot my A10 yet. I just got it, so she hasn't had it in her hands yet, but she will, I'm sure, soon. But it gives you so much more depth in your subject. It gives you a cleaner look. It gives you better skin tones, and it allows you to do some things that you couldn't do. Late day sun setting behind this kid and his dog on location on a ranch. If you, in your mind, just visualize turning off the flash, he's going to be a silhouette. He's going to be really, really dark. And we're going to miss that dog completely. That dog's going to be a black blob. So the flash makes all the difference in the world. All of these, without exception, all these were taken with an A1X or an A10 inside a 2x3 softbox. That's the combination for all these location shots. This is done inside a theater and on stage, and basically she was moved around and the piano was moved around until we picked up the highlight from a downlight in the ceiling to give us the separation light in her hair and her shoulders. But she was lit with the 2x3 and an A1. It just works. So there's an awful lot of people say, yeah, but why work with flash outdoors? What's the point? Why? We're pretty, we're good with natural light. I'm a natural light photographer. I heard a guy in Houston one night say, when anybody tells me they're a natural light photographer, there's a hashtag, I don't understand flash. But after all, it does work. And there is some beautiful natural light out there. Only problem is it limits to what you can do. It limits your day. It limits how long a period of time you can work. So it changes a few things for you, and it sort of puts handcuffs on you. Oh, it's pretty, but we have this reciprocal law of photography, and this, I have to talk about this a little bit for just a second. The reciprocal law or the reciprocal nature of photography applies in all areas of ambient photography, all areas of ambient light. What that means is, let's say a 500th of a second at 5.6. It's the same exact exposure as a 60th at f16, right? If you think about it, it's +3 shutter speeds, -3 apertures to compensate. But those are reciprocating exposure. 500, 5.6, 60, 16. Same exposure. They're just difference in depth of field, frozen motion, or implied motion. But the exposure is the same. Right? Everybody's with me on that? This is yes. Okay. The law of reciprocal breaks as soon as we introduce flash. The breakdown of the law of reciprocal, or what we call reciprocity exposures, falls apart when you turn on a flash. So then, as soon as I introduce flash, all of a sudden the ambient light is taken care of by the shutter speed and aperture combination. But the primary subject is ideally exposed for and cared for by the aperture. That's what the primary subject is. So then I can base my exposure from the flash on the primary subject separately from the exposure of the ambience. Now, a good way to think about this is, for me, I think about it like this. I'm a kind of a simpleton. I want to break things down into the lowest common denominator. And for me, there's 3 areas, 3 times that I want to change my background. I want my background to either be brighter than the background truly is, or I want it to be darker than it truly is, or I want it to be exactly as it truly is. I have to understand which of those things I really am after, and that will determine the shutter speed that I work at with my flash on my subject. Hope that makes sense. If you're shooting with flash, you got a good exposure on your subject, and the background's just too bright for you. All you have to do is change your shutter speed. Don't touch your aperture. Don't touch your flash setting. Leave it alone. Just increase your shutter speed, and the background will calm down. You go from 60th to 125, it calms down a stop. You go to 250, it'll calm down another stop. So, that's the simplistic way to think about it. I came up with this little phrase a while back, so you can think about it this way: expose for the place, and then light for the face. I'll get my dialed in exposure that I want for all the ambience. I'll dial in my exposure for my background. Does that make sense? I want that background to be X. Great. Well, then dial it in. Don't even look at the subject. Don't even worry about the subject. Just get the ambience that you want, and then turn on the flash and have it match that. And if you turn on TTL with Profoto lights, that TTL will find the proper exposure output based on the aperture that you've got dialed into your camera, as long as you have that Air TTL remote on your camera. The system is flawless. The system has not just extended my career, but made me more excited about my career than ever because of how accurate it works. So I kind of poo-poo photographers that are saying, oh, I'm a natural light guy. Well, okay, that means you can shoot 1 session a day. I can shoot 10 sessions a day. And I can arrange my background any way I want. I've got friends that work at a very major entertainment park in Orlando, Florida. They also have one in Anaheim, California. We shall remain nameless. But they're all the time looking for new staff photographers. And when people come in and say, well, I'm a natural light photographer, they put their job applications in pile 2 of the stack because they can't hire them. They need people that understand working with flash in the middle of the daylight. They've got direct sun all day long in Orlando at a theme park. And when they're hiring photographers, they've got to hire people that understand flash and ambient combination, because that harsh sun comes down all day, every day in Orlando. So, you know, you've got to be able to do more than just be a natural light guy or gal. So I'll show another picture of this bracket in a second, but this is my A1X inside an RFI 2x3 softbox, and you can see that bracket. That is the RFI speed light speed ring adapter, and it allows me to put my A1 inside any of my softboxes or any of my light sources. Here it is in use day before yesterday, and it works great because now all of my tools, all of my light shaping tools, I now can apply to and use with my small A1 A10. And here's a long shot, just kind of giving the viewpoint from behind camera. Here's this kid, sweetheart kid, great gal. We've done a lot of work for her family over the years. But you can see that A1X, which is right here. I just got the A10, so I haven't done much testing with it yet. But I'm thrilled that the way it works so far from what I've seen. Yeah, and there's the resulting shot. That's just straight out of camera. I haven't retouched that yet, but that's just the first pop out of camera, and it looks pretty good. And that's the TTL setting with the A1X. Now the shoulder's a little hot. The sun in the back left corner is a little hot. I'll bring all that down a bit, and I can also have increased my shutter speed and brought that down a bit as well. I think the main thing to think about here is we've got all this great technology, but let's not let it get in the way of a good time. So utilize the technology, but understand what it's doing so you can still perform and quickly move through. I shoot a lot of executives in offices, and I've gotten to where with the Profoto TTL, Air TTL system, I can walk into someone's office with a B10 or an A10 with just a light and my camera, and I can go to work and make it happen so fast. And in 7 minutes, I'm done and I'm out the door. I don't have to carry extension cords, and I don't have to go through an awful lot of testing. And golly, it's just so simple. And I think more than anything for me, that's where I am in my career. I want my clients to love what I'm doing. I want to make sense out of what I'm doing. And I want to make sure that I can get in and get out. They value their time. Some people think, well, no, you got to charge by the hour, so you got to stretch out your time. If you stretch out your time, your client will know you're stretching out the time. Don't do that. Here down this little gully area here, it's so dark down the bottom of this thing, but the A1X opened up this area and lit this girl up real well. I'll guarantee you, every place the flash didn't hit on a sunset shot like this, she'll go dark. Look at that. Look at her hair. Look at the shadow. I'm assuming you can see my cursor there, TJ. Look right here at this shadow area. She would be a complete silhouette if I didn't turn on that flash. Now, most of you guys know that. Most of you people that are watching this know that. But you can see I've got a little bit of a soft shadow. It's a 2x3. It's off camera to the far right, skimming across, giving me depth and shape and form and a little bit of dimension on her face. But look at that skin tone. Look how beautiful that skin tone is. It's based on daylight. I set my camera to daylight camera balance, so white balance. My flash coming out of the A1s or A10 is daylight, so it all just works, and it gives me these great skin tones. I don't have to fight or do custom white balance settings ever when I'm using flash outside. I watch photographers all the time, and it takes them forever to get a picture. And I'm not saying let's rush through things, but I am saying let the technology do what it's supposed to do for you, and you can save a lot of trouble, a lot of time. You can get more work done in a day. Beautiful girl. Another same thing, another example. Without the flash fire, and she's going to be pretty dark. She wouldn't be as black silhouette as the previous shot would be, but you can still see from the side that's like under the shadow of the edge of the chair. She would be really dark at that same relative exposure to catch that background. That's a pretty narrow depth of field there. That may be, I can't remember which lens that was. But that light really makes a difference. And again, this is a local area we have here near the studio that's called the Tree Farm, and it's just acre after acre after acre of these great trees, and they're all starting to turn in the next couple of weeks. So we're booking sessions left and right for families, especially, and to put down these these overhanging tunnels of tree coverage and foliage, and it'll just be a depth of color. It'll be beautiful, but got to have that light to be able to pull it off. This is out the Tree Farm again, and you can start to see. This is where people are scratching their head, going, "Wait a minute, you live where?" I live in Oklahoma, but I don't live out in the flat plains where all the tornadoes hit. We're a little bit north and eastern part of the state, where we're surrounded by a lot of trees and rivers and lakes, and it's pretty great up here. Pretty beautiful. Any questions coming in so far there, TJ? Anything we need to address before we keep going on?
Nothing so far.
All right. Well, we'll get to the end. I'm going to leave plenty of time for questions. This is a
Actually, there was one that popped in. Sorry. How did you light that sunset shot? Exposed for the background and TTL for the flash? Question mark. And that comes
exactly.
from
that's exactly what it is. Yeah. You bring down the exposure of the sun until you get exactly what you want. In other words, most people know that a good sunset picture, if you've got a subject facing your camera, by the time you get the sunset exposure down deep enough and rich enough to have that kind of color, you're way away from a good exposure on the subject. You have no choice to light them. There's not a bright enough reflector to do it for you with ambience only. You can't build. It's about 7 stops away from each other there with the subject without a flash and the sky. So to get that kind of color, you've got to underexpose and bring that way down. And then that flash on TTL will find the proper exposure that you've dialed into your camera. That's what TTL stands for, through the lens. It will find the exposure. So, yeah, works great. Good question. This is one of those cases where late in the day, again, the subject is in the right spot on their farm, on their ranch, with her favorite horse and her dog. And this is a high school senior kid. And, the perfect exposure because of that 2x3, it's barely out of frame on the left. It's just out of the frame. And then that highlight through her hair and from the horse. And that's just placement and paying attention to what's going on in the sky. That sun was just about to hit the top edge of those trees in the background, and base your exposure on the place and whatever it might have been. Let's just say it was 125 at 8, 125 at 5.6 that time of day with an ISO 200 probably. And then just turn on the flash and turn on the power to TTL, pop one time, and there it is. I mean, it doesn't get much more simple than that. But you do have to know it's going to happen, and you do have to think about it. And I think that's the part that a lot of people miss is think it through, make sure that it's understandable for you, make sure that it makes sense, and then just do it every time because it does the same thing every time. Downtown Muskogee, senior kid just wanted to go downtown. 2x3 just off camera, 2x3 off camera. All of these are the same. And I just brought this collection to show you sort of what we're doing. That is, and the reason is this is no fuss, no muss. When I say small lights for big power for small lights, the point here is quick, portable, ease of use. You are in, you are hitting, and you are getting out. And that's what this is for high school seniors. If you're going to do that kind of work, it's all about variety. Well, you can't give your clients much variety if it's taking you forever to go from one setup to the next setup. These kids can have, 3, 4, 5 clothing changes. And if you've blocked off 3 hours of shooting time, man, if you're not moving very quickly or having the ability to move very quickly, you're not being able to give them very many views. You're kind of limited. So you really want to be able to move as quickly as you can and still get the quality that you need. You know, I know I'm real bad about getting on a high horse and kind of beating these topics to death. But seriously, I really want to know my craft really, really well. I want to know what's happening. And, you know, students that come to my workshops are shocked and some are a little scared, especially my advanced workshops. Day one of my workshop, my assistant and co-teacher and myself will take little 2-inch by 2-inch square pieces of black gaffer's tape, and we cover the LCD window on the back of your camera. And so for the week of the workshop, you don't get to look. And everybody's like, what? What do you mean we don't get to look? Right. We're going to slow down and we're going to think about it, and then we're going to shoot it. And guess what? When you slow down and think about it and trust the technology, it's there. It's always there. You don't have to look. I think probably from what I've been told, 45% of the drain of your camera batteries is from people reviewing and previewing and going back and looking through all their pictures. You shoot and then look, shoot and then look, shoot and then look, and you keep doing that until you're out of juice, you know, and that'll kill you. But if you one time put that black gaffer's tape on the back of your camera, study what you're doing, slow down before you pull that trigger, think about, is everything set right? Is that over there? Yeah, that looks good. That's okay, fine. Bam, pull the trigger. And then peel the tape off later and look. And you'll see that you did fine. Or you just go ahead and transfer the files over and you'll see that you did fine. Don't be afraid. We shoot for a regional magazine, and these are some pictures I did. Now, this is going to sound weird. This is on a yacht. This is the stateroom, the living room area of a yacht that has 7 bedrooms on board. I've never seen a boat like this in my life. And it's on a small lake up here. Well, it's not a small lake, but it's a lake in northeastern Oklahoma called Lake Eufaula. Funny little Indian name, Native American name. But this is inside the stateroom, and this regional magazine sent us in to photograph and document this yacht. This was lit with one A1 light, lighting the room and augmenting the light that was already in the room. So that light is to my left, camera left, bare bulb, just adding and augmenting light and adding it into the space. Here's another view of it. Looking back the other way, you can see the what do you call it? Not the steering wheel. It's got a name other than a steering wheel, but you can see the control panel there for the whoever's piloting the boat can be doing it from inside that stateroom or up on the next deck. This is on the second or third deck level. If you go up above, one more click up, there's another level up there where the captain sits. And the captain's quarters is with the real, the most used control area. But this is cool. I mean, for me, this was a great opportunity. That's the thing. That's the fun thing about photography. We get invited in to do and see things in places that we never would have done. You know, CPAs don't get to do this stuff, or a doctor or attorneys don't get to see some of the cool things that we get to see. Of course, some of them own the boats, but you know, but yeah, so an A1 helped me. I walked around this entire ship that day, that boat, and I photographed all the staterooms. I photographed all the bedrooms, the hallways. I photographed on the top deck. I shot all over this thing, and I had an A1 with me on a light stand, bare bulb, and I took a small 1x3 strip light with me, and I just had it just in case I needed it. And but I didn't really use it. This is the same magazine shoot. This is a different. This is a regular home, but again, all this is ambient light, properly color balanced, and then I augmented with one bare bulb flash left of camera just to open up the foreground area. This was going dark over here on this area of this bar. The back of this chair was going dark. And I opened all that up a little bit by having a an A1X off to the camera right, bare bulb, aimed into the room. And it just opened up all that brightness for me. And it made it, it makes me more efficient with my time and my client's time. The writer, whoever's writing the article for the magazine and interviewing the client while I'm in their home photographing, they don't want me to be in there 3 hours doing these home interiors. And I'm not. I can get in and out of a home in about an hour and a half. I put this one in to show you, first off, you can see the highlights in this chair. You see how great these highlights look? That's because way over left of camera at about 45 degrees or further, maybe 135 degrees over there, is a bare bulb flash, again, bringing light into the room. But I specifically picked this one to show you that all the details matter, and when you get in a hurry, sometimes you make a mistake. You see the red Yeti that I left in the room. By the time I sent this to the client, to the magazine, the red Yeti was gone. But smack my hand, I left the Yeti in the room. So pay attention. I blew that one. The light coming from the window outside, that is direct sunlight, but I will often take a light outside of a room and fire light into a room for that same reason, to give me a pattern of shadows and shapes of window panes on a wall someplace in a room. I think it adds good depth and again, dimension, shape. I think it just helps add a little bit of interest. It makes it less boring and less, flat and blah. You get in a room like this, the client specifically called for seeing the lake in the background out of the window. Okay, so I've got exposed for seeing the lake out of the window. Well, when you do that, this inside of this bedroom, completely dark, completely silhouetted. So 1A1 raised up pretty high on my light stand with a bare bulb, bounced off the ceiling, gives me this. It just floods the room with light. So I dispel all rumors and myths that these little lights don't have much power. These little lights have a lot of power. I probably was up to about ISO 800, but it doesn't really matter. It gave me the output that I needed. So I hope this all makes sense. The A1, I talk so much about A1. I've been using the A1s now for a couple of years. So I'll replace everything with the A10s, and we'll be using the A10, which I've got one so far, but I'm not done. I'll be selling some A1s pretty soon and buying A10s. I'm a commercial guy, and if I can pull off a commercial shoot like this, utilizing the A1s, that again makes me more dangerous than my competitor, because I can walk into somebody's location with one duffel bag filled with 4, 5, 6 lights and carry it in my left hand while I carry my camera bag in my right hand. All of a sudden, I get pretty dangerous because I can pull off a lot of work pretty quickly. Here, this bottle of wine was put on a white frosted plexiglass, which is suspended between 2 posing blocks. He's a great photographer in San Francisco, probably the best posing guy for people photography I've ever known in my life, named Hanson Fong, Hanson, and the last name Fong, Fong. And he's got these products called Hanson's Posing Blocks, and he has them made overseas, and they are a dense foam product that's covered in a black, really durable cordura fabric. And they come in all these different sizes. Well, they're like, I don't know, 14 inches by 14 inches, and you can get them 3 inches or 6 inches or 10 inches in different depths. And I've got them all over the place. Well, these are Hanson posing blocks holding up the frosted plexiglass, and you can see the A1 going off with the soft light dome, the click dome on top, lighting the bottom of the bottle. You can see, here's my assistant Matt there. You can see the placement of the bottle there. He's putting up light number 2 to light the background. And you can see I had to put up a big opaque panel between the open window in the front of my studio to where I was shooting, because I couldn't let the ambient light affect the highlights on the bottle. I see bottles of of wine shot a lot where photographers have been very, very careless about the highlights. You can't be careless about the highlights on any kind of glassware, whether it's a dark bottle of wine or a clear piece of crystal. A highlight on a shiny object becomes a design element. So you have to think of it as a design element. And so you have to make sure that the light source that you choose gives you a pleasing light shape, a highlight on the picture. So you can see this big highlight right here. That is a very large 6-foot white piece of foam core moved in very, very close to the bottle. This light right here is an A1 inside my 1x3 strip light. I did make a mistake here, which I corrected in the final. You see the grid in that highlight right there. That was the grid, the honeycomb grid on my 1x3, so I didn't flare into my lens from the position of where the strip light was. Well, I realized that I made a mistake there, and I caught it before I got this delivered to the client, pulled the grid out, flagged the lens very carefully, and then shot it again, and I got a good smooth highlight without the grid showing. But those highlights on dark objects like this, man, those are design elements, and you got to make sure that you're very, very careful with your placement there. I utilize this. I mentioned this earlier. This is the Speedlight speed ring adapter for RFI, which gives me the ability to put my A10 right on this cold shoe, this cold mount, and it goes right through that hole into the softbox. And it'll accept your speed lights. It'll accept the round head and the size of the A10 or a lot of other small products. It comes with 4. Yeah.
Okay, can we go back to that last slide? We did have a couple questions that came in with the wine. So
yeah.
And I think you covered the one, which is the highlights. How do you avoid reflections in the bottle? Which you talked a little bit about that, but if you could share a couple more tips with, getting the reflections not on the bottle. And then Mike Robel wants to know: do you mean 6-foot foam board, A1 bouncing off of the foam board? Question mark.
So with the position of the light on the bottom coming up through the translucent, that's giving me a lot of light around the bottle in general. Just the area around the bottle is getting a lot of light. In almost every situation, when I bring in a large, yes, it was a large 6-foot piece or an 8-foot, 8-foot? Yeah, it's an 8-foot foam core. And it's just out of the edge of the frame there, Mike. It's just right there on the right edge. You see it because there's so much ambient light around the bottle, right? So then when I turned on the strip light to give me this accent back here, it's basically going straight toward the bottle and also hitting that big panel. That's what gives me the brightness level right there. And what's great about that is you can see I've got a nice gradient across the label. There's 2 things that are important when you shoot wine bottles. The most important is that label. That winer, that vineyard owner, that winemaker has spent days and days and weeks and months designing every label for every different bottle title that they have. And if you screw up a label of wine, you're in trouble. Well, you can see the nice gradient that I've got. The placement of this foam core here shows you and reveals that little bit of foil stamp right there. You see that shiny foil? So that tells me that the rest of that label is all shiny and foil too. I don't have to see it all because the gradient gives it away, right? So I've got to have some highlight in there or I would not see the foil. I don't have any light on the front facing of this bottle. None. So all the lights that you see that are on this bottle are coming from the 3 lights. One lighting that burst of light on the ground, on the background. One coming up from behind, from below the bottle, and then the strip light. That's how that bottle's lit. And it's like, wait a minute, that doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense. But when you get in the studio, you'll see that you need a whole lot less light than you think when you're lighting bottles up like this. Same with chrome. Same with a crystal. My gosh, you can so often light a crystal glass with only light behind it on the background. You don't even need light on the crystal. Just expose for the crystal based on the light coming through the crystal, and you get some remarkable results. So I'm not sure if I answered the question specifically enough there, but yeah, though I don't often put front light on a bottle. I do occasionally, but not very much, because I've got to deal with the highlights. And you can see you can do a marvelous job with just accents around the subject itself.
Looks super clean for sure. Yep, that answers the question.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Great. Yeah, and then that's where my this gives me the ability, this adapter, and it's really heavy duty. It's really heavy, and it's really solid, well made, and it's got room for 4. You can see there's 1, 2, 3, 4 cold shoes on this array setup. The reason for those extra cold shoes is I can put 4 of my A10s into a gigantic 7-foot umbrella, and I'll guarantee I can get F16, F22 out of that umbrella. You know, so it's pretty great. I can stack 1, 2, 3, or 4 strobes in there. Inside the softbox, I only use 1, so that's why it's positioned the way it is right there for the product shot. But it works great, and I use it all the time. That's how that was pulled off. So, okay, let's go back live to me here and close that. And if you can bring me back in, let me hit stop sharing. There we go. Am I back?
Looks like we are back and better than ever.
We're better than ever. Yeah. So I think the main thing is, two or three key sort of takeaways here is don't be fooled by what you perceive as small power. It's not that small a power when you really look at it, and understand the technology and test until you're comfortable with the technology, and then go to work. And it works the same every time out. Profoto's done some pretty remarkable things that help us all a lot. It helps me every day. And one of those is that when I go to TTL, if I've got my air TTL unit on the transmitter on my camera, and I've got my flash off camera, I go to TTL, take a shot, look at it, and if my exposure is good, then I'll hit the button for TTL back to manual. So as long as that distance doesn't change, I got the same exposure all day long. And so my subject can be wearing white or black. It doesn't matter. I'm going to get the same output out of my flash because I'm back to manual. So it works really, really effectively for me. And then let's not discount the technology that they're introducing with this Bluetooth on the stinking A10. This is fun. Here's the A10. This is my soft light that I can put on top of it. And, you turn this guy on, and let me just show you when I open my iPhone. Let me unlock my phone. And I open up the Profoto app. Now, you don't do this with your iPhone camera. You do it with the camera that's built into the Profoto app to be able to marry these two together. But let me connect that light.
And while he's doing that, I wanted to just share a couple of the features because I'm at this impasse as well. It's like I need to buy one on-camera flash. I already have a couple A1s, but with switching to Fuji, I'm either going to have to get an A1X for Fuji, or do I go A10 for Fuji? And honestly, with kind of future-proofing, these flashes are just like our cameras and our lenses, in which they need those firmware updates. And now with the app, you can simply, click update and it'll do the update procedure. Just having a small flash. I'm thinking like at weddings too, when people want, just a quick photo of themselves. Like I love that I can just pull up, my iPhone app and use the flash that I already have and just pop some light in there and send it to them.
Right.
And just, especially if they just got engaged, it's like I'm putting my photos in your phone before any other photographer, so I can definitely see where, I'm leaning a little bit more towards that, A10. Now, other people might not, and the A1X is still a solid solution. I mean that,
and it will always be solid. What's really fun too is when you're on location, this is so less obtrusive, if you will, because it's so small and so lightweight, but yet it still packs a big punch. I also have switched to Fuji. I'm 100% Fuji TJ, and I'm thrilled about this. I've got the GFX 50R. I've got 2 of those now, and I've got 2 XT3s, and I just got the XT4, and I'm sold. The quality is great. But watch this. If I go to I just turned on my Bluetooth, and it found my app just found this light. So I'm going to turn on. There's my. Let me go to this guy here. Okay, and there's my. I can turn on the modeling light. Hello.
And
So
that's
there's my
one thing,
modeling
too,
light.
that
I
kind
can
of
turn.
separates the Splash
Yeah.
is the fact that it has a modeling light, so you can see that light before it even, enters the, before you hit flash, you're able to kind of see exactly where that flash is.
And you can change its Kelvin temperature as well. I can make it warmer or cooler based on what I choose to do with it. I can turn on the flash. Let me just fire this guy off. Here we go. And there's a pop. They're talking and I'm making exposures on my phone. It's crazy. So I'm all dialed in.
Just to
I'm a
clarify,
fan.
I mean, you're getting the full pop of flash, the actual light. It's not the LEDs that are popping like previous iterations.
Oh
This
yeah,
is
I've
the actual
got a
full power of the flash.
Yeah, I've got it's got a flash tube, so it's giving me a good solid pop, if you will. So
Absolutely.
anyway,
So a
yeah. So if
question,
I've got
I mean, we
any
talked a little bit
questions.
about, we talked a little bit about having, the small lights and how well they do. I guess at what point do you need to go to a B10? And then a follow-up question would be, at what point do you need to go to a B10 plus?
Well, the difference between a B10 and a B10 plus is one stop. That's it. The B10 plus is about that much longer in size than I was looking to see that case is in the back. I just came off a location last night, but my B10 bag's in the back studio. The B10 plus is about 2 inches, 3 inches longer than the B10, but it's one full stop brighter. That does make a difference when, for me, I don't need the extra output so much as I need the quicker recycle. Now, see if this makes sense to you. If I can use a higher power output at a lower output setting, my recycle time is quicker. So if I'm at a 250 power light and at full power, I've got a 2 or 3 second delay or 2 second delay or whatever it is, whatever the delay is. If I can go to a higher power light at a less power output, I'm doubling the quickness or cutting in half the time for recycle. That matters a lot to me photographing model portfolios. I photograph a ton of musicians. I don't know what's happening. Muskogee, Oklahoma, there's just a lot of music here. We went and listened to live music last night, and there's some day after tomorrow we're going to listen to more live music. There's live music here all the time. And I photographed tons and tons of musicians, bands, rock bands, country bands, saxophone players. I got a guy locally here that has a traveling show doing what's his name? Stevie Ray Vaughan. He does a Stevie Ray Vaughan tribute show that's unbelievable. And he sounds and looks exactly like Stevie Ray Vaughan. And I just photographed him for his portfolio. I've got to be able to have recycle time like this. And on location, that B10 will do that and give me F11, F16, F22 output when I need it. So it works really, really well. I use those as my primary source for that kind of quick action that I need. But for times when I've got some setup time and and I'm not in any big rush, and I don't have to have that kind of quick recycle, I'll take these A10s on location, the A1Xs on location all the time, and they just perform beautifully. And here's the key: people all the time say, "Well, Profotos are so expensive." They are. They're the #1 surgical tool. I'm a surgeon, and I make surgical strikes with my lighting. I cannot have light that doesn't do what it's supposed to do when it's supposed to do it. And I know a lot of people that are using a specific brand that has come from nowhere to gain a lot in popularity, and they're saying every 4th or 5th shot it fails.
Right.
I can't have failures. Not what I'm charging clients. You know, for me, I got to have that, and the consistency of the flash output and power, and the perfect symmetry of that tied with the color balance it's paramount importance for me. If I dial in a daylight balance on my camera, I get a daylight perfect skin tone out of my Profotos every time I pull the trigger at any power setting. So for me, that's they're not just expensive, they're just the most valuable tool I can have. So
it's the right tool for the job. And I know Jen Stitt is in the chat room as well.
Hey,
and
Jen.
They're big Profotos user as well, and they, kind of, it's that same thing. And it, does it cost a little more up front? Yeah, but again, it's the right tool for the right job. And when you're in business and you're, especially if you're a wedding photographer and you're there on the most important day of somebody's life, and then you have a catastrophic failure, that
you don't recover from that stuff.
No,
it is unacceptable.
And there's no warranty on a lot of that product. So again,
right.
I definitely see that, if you can in your business, just start small. And that's what I think is great about the A10 line, which used to be the A1 line, is it allows people to get started, with the system, and then, go from there. A question that I had too: how many watt seconds ballpark is the C line, the small little like phone lights? Have you found any use for those?
They're not rated in watt seconds, and that's a great question. I've never tested them. I've got them. In fact, I've got them right here.
I just wonder like how that compares. Like,
I'm a collector. Can you tell? I'm a guy that likes widgets and gadgets and things. So I've got 2 C pluses. I got 2 C's. That's a good question. I wish I had the answer for you. I haven't tested the watt seconds. I've used them a couple of times on a commercial location where I've put them underneath like interiors, like in photographing interior room interiors, where I've hidden them underneath tables to light a dark area under a lamp, or in a kitchen on the bottom of a cabinet. They were designed ideally for bloggers and people using, their cameras and just needed, with their phones, and they needed something to fire off, and they just needed some bit of flash. But I don't know, from a professional standpoint, for me, their biggest use for me is going to be opening up dark areas of interiors. But I haven't really checked for the watt seconds. That's a good question. I'll try to scope that out and report back. So,
and one of the things that I used a lot this past weekend at the wedding, specifically because I use the Connect on my Fuji, just stay small, low profile. I know I'm going to be getting an on-camera one soon that I can control, from there.
That little guy.
Lights are up on stands, so it's so much nicer just to pull up the phone and like go up a little bit or come down a little bit, instead of me walking over to that light, bringing it down, making a change, putting it back
so
up.
Important.
Like, it just makes it so easy just to be able to look, be on your phone and then go up or down a little bit. Or having your, if you do have an assistant, especially at a wedding, hey, bring those lights up, and boom, there they go.
Yeah. Well, and it's the same thing with the B series, with B10s, B10 pluses, B1s. Being able to have all the head control on the remote, where you power up, power down, turn the head on, turn the head off. All that's real important, and just understanding how the group works. The groups work, not group works. Groups work. To be able to power up head number 2 over there. Head it's in the C group over there, and power down B over there on the accent light. That's all so helpful, fast, and done remotely. So it's all one big system. It makes us better, I'll tell you. That's for sure. It makes us more valuable to our clients. And for me, that's, you know, I have great clients and I love my clients, and I really go out of my way to do everything the right way for them. The last thing I need to do is be futzing around with equipment failures or trying to figure something out on location. They pay me too much to not know my gear by the time I get on location. I got to know what I'm doing. And this stuff works. It's repeatable and it's predictable, and you know what it's going to do as long as you've tried it and tested it. So absolutely. I wish everybody great success with this stuff. This technology is fabulous. And you and I've had these conversations, TJ, on the road before, you know, where technology is just such a kick. It's so much fun. So
indeed. Well, Tony, thank you so much. I don't see any other questions coming
Absolutely.
in. I appreciate your time today, and thank you to Profoto for sponsoring this talk. We're excited to have these in
Thank
store.
you, Profoto.
Absolutely. So if you need to pick up your A10 or any Profoto gear, give us a call at the store or head over to thepixelconnection.com.
Thanks everybody for tuning in.
Absolutely. Have a good week.
Nice to see you, Jen.